welcome to the latest episode of the Gull Action podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at Brighton, Albion and Crawley Town. I'm Matt Poll, and this week I'm joined by Brighton writer Darren Howard, Sam Morton, who keeps an eye on both the Albion and the Reds, and Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford. Jack Hinshelwood and Bart Verbruggen were the heroes as the Seagulls move up to 6th in the Premier League with a 2-1 home win over Brentford, while Crawley came from behind to draw 1-1 with Accrington to extend their unbeaten run. This week, we'll look back at Albion's win at the Amex, the Reds' draw with Accrington, and preview this weekend's upcoming fixtures. You can read all the stories we are talking about with videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Bart Verbruggen came to Brighton's rescue after his stoppage time penalty save from Igor Thiago and a dramatic victory over Brentford. Albion had looked like tasting defeat after Thiago's first half spot kick had put the visitors in front. Danny Welbeck's 71st minute leveller sparked a grandstand finish for the Seagulls, and substitute Jack Hinshelwood completed the turnaround with 6 minutes left. Maxim de Kuyper nearly threw the points away by bringing down Kevin Schade in the box, but goalkeeper Verbruggen made himself the hero by reading Thiago's stuttering run-up and landing on the tamely hit penalty. In case you couldn't tell there, Darren, a lot happened by the sounds of it. The game filled with incident. Sum that Brighton performance up for us, please. It did seem like the old adage of a game with two halves, from what I've read.
Yes, yeah, exactly that. It was quite an entertaining watch, actually, and I think overall Brighton just about deserved the 3 points, but it could have been different if Thiago had scored his second penalty of the afternoon. But really pleased for Bart Verbruggen. He's I think his performance levels have improved over. He had a bit of a shaky start to the season, but I think he's got so much better in the last sort of 10 games or so. And then just to save that penalty at the end would have done him the world of good. I think it's the first penalty he saved for Brighton or for the Netherlands as well. So it's he actually said in the post-match press in the mix zone, he said it's about time I actually saved the penalty. So, and it couldn't have come at a better time for Brighton as well. It moved them. Got another 3 points at home where they've been really strong this season, and it's moved them up to 6 in the table. It's so tight at the top there. So all these, if they can just sneak a win here or sneak these points, it's going to make a massive difference come the end of the season when they're hoping to be in the mix up for the European places. But yeah, really good. The first half was pretty poor. Herzello, I was just at the press conference just now, and he said there was some heated words between the players. He said not so much from him, but words from the players at half time, because they accepted that it just wasn't sort of what they should be delivering, especially at home. It didn't come to blows. There was no sort of Gahey and Keane incident, apparently, but no punches were thrown. But apparently there were some strong words, some heated exchange. And Lewis Dunk came on in the second half. He was only fit to. He was suffering with some illness, so he couldn't play the first half. Buscaglia played. Lewis Dunk came on, and it looked a little bit more assured. And then obviously Welbeck, what a finish from him as well. It was an awkward finish. It was quite a looping cross that came in, and Welbeck had to watch it so carefully and guided a nice finish into the corner. Another goal for him. And then Jack Hinshelwood as well, his first game back after injury. And he it was a bit of a scuffed effort, really. He sort of came off his shin a little bit, but it found the bottom corner. And a really good moment for him as well after a frustrating injury that he's been out with for a couple of months. So yeah, good 3 points for Brighton against a very tricky Brentford team, really.
Absolutely. We've spoken a little bit about the good, and now we'll have a look at the not so good. We've spoken about Albion midfielder Carlos Bliber, it seems like, on numerous occasions so far this season on the podcast. The Cameroon international attracted plenty of transfer interest in the summer after a superb 2024-25 campaign has been well documented. But the avoidable penalty he conceded in the first half against Brentford kind of summed up his struggles this term, and he was eventually hooked at half-time. Sam, where does Bliber go from here? Is it time for Herzello to take the 21-year-old out the fiery line so he can probably rediscover a bit of confidence in a bid to rediscover last term's wonderful form?
Yeah, I think so. I'm reluctant to go too heavy on him because he's still such a young player. You don't like to pick out one player for stick every week, but it's making it quite difficult not to talk about him, isn't he, in a negative sense, because things are not going well for him at all. And it kind of things went from bad to worse against Brentford. Obviously, with we're giving away the penalty, and it was such a clumsy tackle. He was never getting to the ball, and he just completely timed it wrong. And when you're in a run of form like that, you just don't want to be doing things like that. You kind of want to be staying out of incidents like that, and you kind of just want to keep things simple, keep yourself out of the firing line in that sense. And I think Hertzler's obviously tried to play him into form. He just kept playing him in the hope that he's going to rediscover his brilliant best, and it just hasn't happened. I suppose a lot of the problems is to do with the fact that there's not really been many players to come in for him, but that's not the case now. Jack Hinshelwood's back, and Hinshelwood has obviously shown Brighton what they've been missing. And has staked a big claim to be in that midfield spot alongside Yassine Yari. And I do think that it will be the midfield two against Nottingham Forest. I would be surprised if Belieber starts again because it really isn't going well for him at the moment. But it was interesting because Fabian Hertzler was asked about it in his press conference. Obviously, he brought Belieber off at half time yet again. That's happened a number of times this season. I think I've actually lost count of how many times he's been brought off at half time and early in the match.
Five.
Yeah. And Hertzler said, regarding Carlos, we know he's still not there, but we want to have him. We need to help him. We need to get an understanding for his situation. He's still a very young player, so we have to keep pushing. I'm sure he will get back to his highest level. It's our responsibility to give him the environment where he can improve, and it's his responsibility for sure to take ownership for this and to keep pushing. He did stress he didn't play a bad game. He said he didn't take him off because he was playing badly. In some moments, you need to try to understand the opponent and the profile you need to change the game. And he actually said it's wrong for the media to say he plays a bad performance, but some moments you have to make decisions about how you want to win the game, and that's why we're here, and therefore you have to make tactical decisions. But I certainly think with the way that Hinshelwood came on, made an instant impact, it would be pretty crazy. I mean, it all depends on how match fit Hinshelwood is, though. That's the only thing. Hinshelwood did speak in his own interview with us that it'd be interesting how he kind of recovers from his first minutes in 2 months and over 2 months. So whether he's fit enough to play a full 90 minutes is another question. But I think if he is, you've got to start him over Belieber on form.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed Belieber can turn his form around. Well, speaking of Hertzler, the German made history on Saturday, becoming the youngest manager to reach 50 Premier League games. The 32-year-old has delivered 21 wins, 17 draws and 12 defeats, with Brighton scoring 85 goals and conceding 75, collecting 80 points, an average of 1.6 per game. How would you assess Hertzler's half-century, Darren? His record suggests progress, but I think, as we mentioned many times on the podcast before, there are several things that he could probably iron out and improve on.
Yes, yeah. As you say, the stats sort of suggest a pretty successful, start to his Albion career, and I think he's done a really good job since coming in. And there was so many question marks when Brighton appointed him. It was such a gamble. It was like, who's this guy coming from, Bundesliga 2 that nobody's ever heard of? And he had to face all of this. He had all of the questions about his age. You've got the likes of James Milner, who's probably 7 or 8 years older than him, Danny Welbeck, Lewis Dunk, Joel Veltman, all these sort of senior big personalities in the Brighton dressing room who are older than him as well. And he's come in to replace the manager, Roberto De Zerbi, who, although the wheels fell off a little bit towards the end of De Zerbi's reign, he was very popular with the fans. So I think Hertzler's had a lot to contend with as well, and I think he's dealt with it really, really well. He's a manager of sort of substance, and I think he's, even after his, if he depends how long he stays at Brighton for, but I think he's the one that's going to go on and have a really good career in the game if that's what he wants to do. But as far as what he can improve at Brighton, probably one of the main things on his list at the moment is getting Belieber back to a 100 million midfielder. It's such a massive, I know we've spoke about it a lot, but his drop off has been so evident this season, and Hertzler's been keen to allow him a chance to play him back into form, but I think it's getting to the point now where it's detrimental to the team, and he has to have some time out of the squad, because if he's delivering performances like that, players who are really pushing to get into the team and, fighting in training to get into the team, I think it sort of sends the wrong message out if Belieber's continuously starting. So I think that's one key area Herzella has to address. Also, the goals against column this season and last season has probably been too high. So that's an area of the pitch that's always been a bit of a concern with Herzella's team. There have been a lot of factors towards that. He had a lot of injuries in defensive areas last season, and this season he's had more of a settled defensive lineup this season, but the protection in front of them with that midfield area has been a problem as well. So I think if it's a big if as well, if he can address those two issues, then I think he's really on a solid footing, and I think he's in a really good place to push Brighton on for European football next season. They had quite a bloated squad last season. He was quite ruthless in the players that he identified that he no longer wanted to be part of the team, and he's allowed the likes of Matt O'Reilly to go, Julio Enciso as well, players of that ilk, Evan Ferguson, and he's got his squad. He's put his stamp on his team this season, and I think probably he made the right calls as well. If you weigh it up on balance as well, obviously he probably wanted to keep João Pedro, but that was a big offer which Brighton probably couldn't refuse. So overall, a really good 50 games in charge, but still room to keep on improving.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we mentioned at the top of the pod, and as Darren alluded to, victory over Brentford moved the Seagulls up to 6th and into the race for Europe. Sam, do you see Albion sustaining their European charge? It's a long way to go yet, but plenty of reasons for optimism, including, I guess, some of the bigger clubs not really finding their form at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's definitely been a positive for Brighton. Some of the matches they've dropped points in this season, they haven't really stepped away too much. They've been really kind of in amongst it really for the whole time, and other teams dropping points around them, and everything's quite congested. So if you pick up a couple of wins, it just propels you right up the table, and we've seen that obviously in recent weeks. And I think a lot of the reason for optimism is to do with their home form. It's 10 unbeaten now at home. They're really making the Amex a bit of a fortress, a really tough team to beat at home. Even when they fell behind against Brentford, you back them to come back into the game. And I know time is ticking away, but they've just got that quality to turn matches around. And that's been one real positive from Hurst's time at Brighton is bringing on players at the right moments and bringing on game changes at any moment. And that's a credit to the club as well for ensuring the right talent's there to be able to do that. So I think, definitely the signs are positive. One area they do need to improve is their away form. Just the one away win this season, that was at Chelsea. It was obviously a big one. One of the two probably biggest wins, obviously away at Chelsea, and they beat Man City at home, two to come to mind. But apart from that win at Stamford Bridge, they have struggled to pick up points on the road. We were talking before with Darren in a different podcast about the Forest game, looking ahead to that, and just comparing kind of the state of fortunes between the two teams when they last played them. Obviously, with the 7-0 hammering, and obviously a lot has changed. But Brighton's away form isn't great going into it, so it will be interesting to see how they fare against Forest on Sunday, and if they can get a big win there, that could then really propel them into a strong period of the season. But yeah, I think if they've dropped points again, or if they're beaten, it could be a sign that things aren't quite right away from home. But I think the signs are really positive. We're really encouraged from what I've seen. If you keep Welbeck scoring, and if you keep Minter playing the way that he is, he's been electric this season. I think Brighton will always score goals, and obviously with Hinshaw coming back into the team as well, that adds goals from midfield. We know that Yassine Diarra has an eye for goal too, so that's really important, having goals all over the pitch if they're going to mount a European charge. And they prove they can come from behind in tough circumstances against Brentford. So yeah, definitely positive signs.
Well, as Sam mentioned, this Sunday sees the Seagulls travel to Nottingham Forest, who inflicted a chastening 3-0 defeat upon champions Liverpool last weekend. And I'm sure Albion fans don't need reminding, but they will probably be looking to avoid a repeat of last season's performance at the City Ground as Forest thumped Brighton 7-0. How do you see this one going, Darren? I don't want to curse it, but I can't see a repeat of last season's performance. But then following that, Brighton then entertain Villa on Wednesday evening. So the games just keep on coming thick and fast, don't they?
Yes, yeah, they've got two games in a week, and they haven't had it too much, to be fair, this season, where they've had to sort of go twice in 1 week. So I think the fitness of the squad overall is pretty good. Last year at Nottingham Forest, Herzella said that he didn't have one midfielder who was fit for 90 minutes, and he had Hinchelwood in a lone midfield role where he was completely overrun. And Nottingham Forest really put Brighton to the sword that day. So I think Herzl has learned a lot from that as well in terms of formation and tactics, and the players. It's one that will really stick in their memory, and they won't want any repeat of that as well. So I think the signs are that they can deliver a much more encouraging performance and hopefully get a positive result. In terms of injuries, Karen Matoma, Herzella was just saying at the press conference this morning, is still unavailable. He hasn't played since the 3-1 away win at Chelsea. So that was described as a small issue at the time, and this issue just keeps on going along, and it's proved more problematic to solve. So he expects him back before Christmas, is the latest on Matoma. So fingers crossed for that. And the game's going to come too soon for James Milner as well. He's still struggling with a muscular issue that he picked up against Liverpool. Tommy Watson will be available for selection. He missed out on a matchday squad against Brentford with a small issue, but he's been training this week and should be available, as has Lewis Dunk. He came on for the second half against Brentford, but he should be fully fit to start against Nottingham Forest.
Well, best of luck to Brighton this week. But now we will look at Crawley Town, who extended their unbeaten League Two run to 4 games with a 1-1 home draw with Accrington. Kabongo Shimanga scored a second-half equaliser as the Reds rescued a point against the Merseyside outfit. What did you make of Crawley's performance, Mark? Was there a tinge of disappointment after the battling performance at Gillingham last weekend?
Yeah, it was. It was just really flat. That's how Scott Lindsay described it afterwards, and he was right. They didn't come out and attack the game like they did at Gillingham. I mean, against Gillingham, I think they hit the post, had a couple of one-on-ones and that within the first 10 minutes, forced a load of corners, but it just didn't happen from this time. And it was hard to put a finger. I think the weather played a huge part in it, because it was awful on Saturday. I think it was everywhere. I mean, that's no excuse. No manager wants to use weather as an excuse, but who wants to play in that kind of rain? I certainly wouldn't. But I was moaning enough watching it. So, it was just really flat, and it was just really disappointing given how they performed at Gillingham. They were so good against Gillingham the week before in the 2-2, when they should have won quite easily in the end. But there were some decent performances. I mean, you look at the stats as always. They had more possession, more shots on goal, more passes, more touches in the opposition box. But it just didn't happen for them, and I just don't think I don't know if they weren't brave enough. But given that, Accrington were a very well organised side, not a particularly nice side to watch, but as you can imagine, a team from up north in rainy conditions, they probably absolutely loved it, and they were just happy to every time Crawley were attacking, you could see the block of, they were wearing blue on Saturday, a block of blue, and Crawley had to try and play round them, and they did play some really nice football, and they had some chances, but I think there was only one really big chance as well as the goal, and it was just a shame really, but it has continued their unbeaten run, which is important. So. But yeah, you could tell afterwards. When Scott walked into the press conference, that was horrible out there, wasn't it, Scott? And he went, "What, the performance?" And I think he thought it was a worse performance than I did. He was just like, but I think he saw it as a missed opportunity. There should have been another 3 points there and sort of get them up the table a bit further.
Harry McCurdy made his return for the Reds Accrington, starting his first game for Crawley in over a month. The forward was substituted after 56 minutes, making way for Crawley's eventual goal scorer, Shimanga. How did Reds manager Scott Lindsay assess McCurdy's performance, Sam, and why was the striker withdrawn so early in the second period?
Yeah, so I think fans would have been pleased to see the return and top scorer McCurdy. Really, he started his first match since October the 18th, and he looked lively in the early stages and had arguably the Reds' best chance of the half two. And he's played in by Josh Flint, had an effort saved by Ollie Wright. He was substituted after 56 minutes, making way for Crawley's eventual goal scorer, Shimanga. And after the game, Scott Lindsay clarified why he was replaced. He said he got a knock, so he was sore anyway, but he was never going to play 90 minutes. It was always going to be probably around 60 minutes that we brought him off. And it was just a case of getting him back in the team, and he'll be better for that. But he was never going to play 90 minutes. Lindsay thought he looked bright and sharp in moments, but did back him to score that big chance that he had. And he said there was another chance where he got in front of the defender, and it kind of felt that he could have done better in that moment as well. Lindsay thought he was trying to buy a foul a little bit, which he thought he should have done better with that situation. But he did say he's bright and will create goals and he will create chances. And he's hoping McCurdy's obviously knock is nothing serious and he's able to build on his return to action against Salford.
Well, Shimanga's equaliser against Accrington has been described as a scrappy one, but one person who thought it was a great goal was manager Scott Lindsay. Why did Lindsay enjoy Shimanga's goal so much, Sam, and what else did Lindsay have to say about his super sub?
Yeah, because to the naked eye, it looks a little bit scrappy this one. It was a corner routine where Harry Forster swung it out to Bajrami. Defender shot towards goal. Not a great connection, but it fell to the feet of Shimanga, who swiveled and fired home from 5 yards. Lindsay was full of praise for the goal, and Shimanga himself, who scored 3 goals coming on as a substitute this season. Lindsay said he's put himself in the team. That's what he's paid to do, score goals. He's done well, and not just the fact that he put the ball in the net a couple of times. He's actually got on the pitch and it looked like he's given us a bit more energy. He's given us a little bit more know-how. And he's done well when he's come on, and he was a great goal. I know it maybe looked a bit scrappy, but he was in the right position. We work on our corners extremely hard. Maybe it fell to him. We got a little bit of fortune, but we'll take it. And he finished it well after swivelling to get the shot away. So, yeah, it sounds like he was kind of happy that he was in the right place at the right time, which obviously the striker needs to do. And scrappy goals count just as much as the 40-yard screamers at the end of the day. And Shimanga hasn't obviously had the most fruitful season in front of goal, but Lindsay hopes that this will help him build his confidence to move forward and become a real important player for Crawley this season.
Sorry, yeah, he's joint top scorer now with McCurdy, I think, with 4 for the season in all competitions. So, yes, he's done well. He's done well since he's come on. But we're going to ask him today, actually, Scott, is there do you change it and bring him on because he's scoring goal as a starter, or do you keep him as that impact sub? It's an interesting decision to make, isn't it?
Yes, and a good dilemma to have, I would assume, from a manager's point of view. Moving to matters off the pitch, Erdem Konya has returned to Crawley Town. Konya left his role as the club's technical director in April 2022, but has been appointed as the new director of football at Broadfield Stadium. I don't think many of us expected to see Erdem back at Crawley, Mark. What do you make of his appointment? How will his new role work, and how the fans as well as Scott Lindsay reacted to Erdem's arrival? Yeah,
it's a funny one. And first of all, the reaction was just wholly positive. Fans were really excited to see him back. He did a great job when Zaya Erin was in charge of Crawley for those 6-7 years, I think it was. He's got good contacts around the footballing world, so he kind of makes sense. Someone who knows the club, bit of continuity from the past. And yeah, I was surprised to see him come back, but it's good to see him back. Scott Lindsay absolutely loves him. Obviously, Scott wouldn't have worked with him before because they didn't quite cross over. But Scott absolutely seems to love him and says he's great working with him. And he sort of highlighted that their relationship is key. Obviously, Erdem's got to find players for Scott to work with. And I think that's what his main role is. It's going to be recruitment. He's going to go through different scouting programs and all that and look around the world, not just in the UK, but obviously he's got his connections with Turkey. Which they had a couple of players before from when he was in charge. So he's going to be looking at highlighting players, trying to find players, hold those conversations with players and try and get players in the door for January already. Scott said this week, I think, that they were having a recruitment meeting, and because he said we need to get these deals done before January so we can hit the ground running in January. So it's really interesting about the fans were absolutely just full of praise for him and couldn't wait for him to get started. And I suppose as football fans, they like familiar faces, don't they? They like to know the people that are coming in to do these key jobs. And I think Erdem is that for Crawley Town. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting, how it works between him and Scott. I mean, Scott's going to have his idea of who he wants, but I think Scott's adaptable and will listen to who Erdem recommends. And obviously it's all down to stats, but it's about know-how and whether they will fit into Scott Lindsay's system, because if they play for Scott Lindsay, they've got to play the way he wants. They can't come in and do their own thing. So, it's going to be really interesting to see what I think. We will see 3 or 4 players come in, but the interesting thing with that is that their squad is full at the moment. So 3 or 4 players will have to leave as well if they're going to do that. So be interesting to see who Scott has earmarked for leaving and coming in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting January ahead, I think. Well, this Saturday sees the Reds travel to 12th placed Salford City. Salford have been in poor form of late, losing their last 2 League 2 fixtures. All the signs pointing towards the perfect time for Crawley to play Salford, Mark, but we know it doesn't normally work that way. How do you see this one going, and what's the latest injury news from the Reds camp?
Yeah, so it's a funny one, Salford, aren't they? Because every year, because of the money behind them, they're always tipped to be favourites to go up. But it's never seen quite. I think they had quite a good season last year. They just missed out on the playoffs, and they had a good start this season, but they've dropped off a little bit. But my helper Adam Sayer, we've been helping us from University of Brighton, he's a postgraduate there. He's doing some work for us. He's doing some questions today, and he says Salford are 3rd in the league for XG, 5th in the league for big chances created, and 2nd in the league for big chances missed. So they obviously create a lot of chances. But Crawley do that as well. Normally, they create a lot of chances, but both sides are obviously struggling to score goals this season. So it is going to be who's on fire that day. I think who's going to come out on top. I mean, we'll get onto the score predictions, but I think Crawley will get something here. I think they are playing Salford at the right time, but Salford will probably look at Crawley and say they've had 2 games where they've drawn, which they probably should have won both. So they probably think, it might be a good time to get something over Crawley Town. Crawley aren't the greatest on the road either. But if the interesting thing Scott said after the Accrington game was, we've got to pretend we are in front of the Sky cameras each week. He said, we can't, not pretend, we can't be the team that only plays in front of the Sky cameras, or exact words. So I've slightly misquoted him there. But so basically he's saying you've got to be on it every single game. You can't just think, it's Accrington at home, no point performing today, Sky cameras aren't here. They've got to be on it the whole time. And if they are on it, they are capable of being anyone. Charlie Barker said afterwards, if we are on our game, no one can stop us. But not everyone has been on their game every game this season, as we can see from the league standings and that. So I think they will get something, but they have been struggling with injuries. Obviously, McCurdy's come back, which is a positive, but you've got the likes of Kyle Scott. Max Anderson is going to be out for a while. I think he fractured a bone in the Gillingham game. He was in really good form as well, which is saying Gavin Houlihan we haven't seen for a while. There's a few out, but we're hoping to get a little bit of an update from Scott today. Scott Malone's out for a while as well. I think Ryan Loft is back from suspension this week, but listening to Crawley fans, I don't think many want to see him back. But I don't think anyone's replacing Louis Flower at the moment, because Louis Flower is looking really good at the moment. But it's whether you start Kabi Shamanga and play him up top with Louis Flower on one of the wings or just behind. He's got a lot of good selection headaches to make, but I think he's hoping that he can get a couple more players back fit, because we've seen the likes of Fake Coty and Jude Robinson on the subs bench, who we wouldn't normally see because they're 17, 18-year-olds. Scott trusts them and he thinks they're good players, but I think it's too early to throw them into league starts and league games, and he wouldn't be putting them on the subs bench if he didn't have to, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, best of luck to Crawley this weekend. And as is tradition, we will close out the podcast with score predictions, starting on Sunday with Brighton's jaunt to Forest. Darren, how do you see this one going? As I said, I can't see it being a 7-0 to Forest again, putting the kiss of death on that. How do you reckon it'll go?
7-0 to Brighton, I think. No, I think Brighton are going to get it. I think they're going to be very motivated, and I'm going to go for a 2-1, I think. 2-0, 2-1, 2-1, I think.
2-1. Sam, how do you see this one going?
I think it's going to be a really tough one. I think Forest have built up a bit of form under Sean Dyche, obviously coming into it on the back of that 3-0 win at Liverpool, and they haven't actually been beaten since the end of October away at Bournemouth. So I'm going to go for an entertaining draw, 2-2.
And Mark, what do you reckon will happen at the City Ground?
I was going to go for 2-2 as well for those reasons. Sean Dyside is never winning 7-0, is it? So I think, I think it will be a draw. I think Brighton will get something, but they're not going to. Nottingham Forest are not a team easy to beat at the moment, are they?
No, absolutely. And then moving on to Wednesday when Brighton host Villa. Start with you, Sam. Tough one to call this, if you ask me. What do you reckon?
Yeah, another one where Villa had a really slow start to the season, but they've just been quietly getting on with their business, and now up to fourth in the league. They're looking really strong. Morgan Rogers looks back to his best. Marlon looks in form as well. I think Buendia has been contributing to a couple of goals, and they're going to be a tough one to beat. I'm going to go with another draw. I think I'll say 1-1 for this one.
Darren, what do you reckon? Do you think Brighton are maybe ever so slight favourites owing to their excellent home form? What do you reckon?
Yeah, given their home form, that will give them a lot of confidence coming into this game. But I just think Villa are in such a good moment. Emery's just shown what a good manager he is, just to turn this around and get it going. I was going to go 1-1 as well. I'm going to go 1-1, I think. Yeah.
We're going to go for a full house of 1-1s, Mark?
No, I'm going for a Brighton win. 3-1. I think they're going to have a good night. Good night at the Amex. Home form. I think they're going to have
under
a good
the
one.
lights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Like that confidence. And finally, as we mentioned, Crawley are off to Salford in League Two, and by the sounds of it, Mark, it could be a 5-5 draw. It
could be, or it could be a really dull 0-0. Nobody being able to score. Plenty of chances both ends, but it's Crawley go after this. There's a 10-day break because they're not in the FA Cup, and then they've got Bromley on the Tuesday night, I think, away on the following week. So Scott Lindsay said they've got to get something from this game to take into that 10-day break. Otherwise, it's quite a depressing little break, isn't it, if you end up losing? So I think they will get something. I'm going to be super confident. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Crawley Town. 2-1
win. Sam, do you echo Mark's thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I think they need a team. They're blistering best, to say the least. I think they're going to cancel each other out and go for a full house of draws and all the predictions. I can't decide between 0-0, 1-0. I'll go with a couple of goals. I'll say 1-0.
Excellent stuff. And last by no means least, Darren, how do you see this one going up in Salford?
Yeah, I can see Crawley. If as Scott Lindsay said, they need something before they break. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Crawley. I think they might just put in excellent performance. Yeah,
come on, you Reds!
Brilliant stuff. Up the Reds. Best of luck to both Brighton and Crawley this week, and my thanks as ever for Darren, Sam and Mark for joining me. Don't forget you can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and we will see you all next week.